Shannon Walsh was the coolest and most popular girl in the sophomore class. She was tall, lean, with long, glossy hair and alluring hazel eyes. She was always clad in the newest and most trendy fashions, and although her grades were average at best, her social life was an A+. All the girls worshipped at her altar of designer clothes and submitted to her haughty personality. And all the boys chased after her trim physique and flirty, darting eyes. It was known all over campus that for Shannon's 16th birthday, she was hosting an exclusive slumber party. Although it was rumored to be a night propelled by underage drinks, swanky goodie bags, and endless glittery girly shenanigans, Danielle knew that realistically, it was going to be like every other teenage sleepover. Pizza, prank calls, truth or dare, and maybe toilet papering if they were feeling extra adventurous. It was all hype and gossip. But that didn't stop Danielle from squealing with glee as one of Shannon's minions handed her a glitzy pink envelope. She knew it was a pity invite. Shannon and Danielle's moms worked together and were in the same book club. This wasn't a true extension of friendship, but it was a shot at the big leagues, and Danielle was delighted. The week leading up to the party was fraught with distractions for Danielle. A juggling act of party preparations and pesky school responsibilities. The day of the big event, Danielle took meticulous pains preparing herself for the festivities. She took an extra long everything shower, paying particular attention not to rush the hair washing or leg shaving process. She needed to be sparkling clean, skin glowing, hair shining, and nails perfected. She slathered her face in a minty green mud mask she found in her mom's cabinet and dashed gold and pink sparkly paint all over her freshly filed nails. She blow-dried her hair and curled the long waist-long locks. She artfully applied eyeliner and whisked black mascara over her spider-like lashes. The whole effect was rather cat-like and classic. She nearly had a meltdown over what to wear, but her sister unwillingly sacrificed a navy Abercrombie & Fitch polo, and Danielle pulled on strategically distressed jeans over her dolphin skin legs. Silver stars were thoughtfully chosen as the theme for the jewelry. And although they were not quite as white as Danielle had hoped, her mother had freshly washed her Converse to complete the look. Gift in hand and duffel bag in the car, it was time to head to the party. As they drove the 12 miles to Shannon's house, Danielle tried desperately to keep calm. She had begun to sweat and was terrified she would show up at the party with seeping white splotches of deodorant under her arms. She needed to keep it together. This was her opportunity to join the ranks of high school royalty. The party was exclusive. Only 4 girls, including Shannon. And there were goodie bags, but they were not flush with Marc Jacobs or Chanel, but rather ring pops, Skittles, and packets of Warheads. As Danielle had expected, the party was pretty basic. Pizza and soda for dinner, champagne cake for singing around, and then gifts. A monogrammed purse from Hannah, a nail art kit from Alice, and the new Timbaland CD shock value from Danielle. As Danielle had hoped, Shannon seemed impressed by her gift. Her eyebrows arched, and a smile of surprise pulled at the corners of her cotton candy pink mouth. Alice and Hannah were not quite as thrilled. Danielle had obviously won the unspoken game of who can give the best gift. Then came the tedious hour of prank phone calls. Bobby's mom received a call from the Itty Bitty Titty Committee, and John was asked if his refrigerator was still running. Truth or Dare exposed Hannah's not-so-secret crush on Riley Mason, and Alice had to down a shot glass full of mustard. Pretty routine evening. As the night wore on, Shannon's standard aloof manner turned to sheer boredom. And Danielle didn't blame her. If this is what popularity looks like, Danielle was happy to stay in the drama club. At least their parties had musical theater-themed karaoke and sexually confused teens desperate to play spin the bottle. By the time midnight had struck, the girls were sitting silently in Shannon's lime green bedroom. Timbaland's Way I Are quietly crackling out of the iridescent blue boombox in the corner of the room. "This party is dead," Shannon let out with a sigh. "Maybe you should have invited more people," Alice suggested. "Shut up, Alice. It's an exclusive party. Exclusive meaning small. I couldn't invite the entire sophomore class, could I?" "You invited her." "I did not invite her. My mom did. Anyways, that doesn't solve my current issue. Someone think of something fun." "What about a game of Monopoly? I'll be the dog," suggested Alice. Shannon did not even dignify that suggestion with a, "Seriously?" "We could make up a dance," Hannah proffered. Danielle liked this idea, but she took a cue from Shannon and also shook her head. "We could toilet paper?" Danielle offered meekly. "I do not toilet paper," Shannon replied in a tone of utter disgust. Okay, well..." Danielle's mind was spinning frantically. She had to save the night. This really could be her golden ticket. The girl who saved Shannon Walsh's birthday. Suddenly, a risky idea entered her mind. She debated about whether or not to make the suggestion, but quickly decided that tonight was a night for risks. "How about a seance?" There, she had said it. This was either going to come across exciting, adventurous, and alternative, or freaky and geeky. 3 sets of smudged eyeliner eyes stared back at her. Hannah was horrified, her teeth chewing nervously at her bottom lip. Alice looked on the verge of laughter. But all that really mattered was Shannon's opinion. And her face was unreadable. Her face was expressionless, blank, and inscrutable. But there was a glint in her eyes, which propelled Danielle to continue on. "Do you have a piece of poster board left over from the science fair?" Danielle asked. Shannon's curiosity moved her to the closet, where she returned with a blank, bright yellow poster sheet. Danielle grabbed a Sharpie from the desk and proceeded to scrawl the alphabet across the sheet. She wrote a line of numbers, 1 through 0, across the middle, scratched a yes and a no in the top corners, and scribbled goodbye at the bottom. Next, she downed her glass of water and dried it on her pant leg before flipping it upside down onto the day glow sheet. She looked up at the girls, impressed with her quickly devised spirit board, expecting and hoping for admiration from the slumber party attendees. Yet, she was affronted with a peal of laughter. "That has to be one of the stupidest creations I've ever seen," Alice cackled. "What? Are you too scared?" Danielle challenged. She could feel her cheeks burning and offense clouding her face. "No way I am messing around with a neon Ouija board." "Why not?" questioned Shannon. "It's more interesting than your idea." "Shannon, come on, you're not serious." Horror began to spread across Hannah's face. When Shannon sat, silent, impassive, and stoic, she began to reason. "Shannon, be real. Not only is this stupid, it's not even a real board, but it's also foolish. You never know who you may summon." "I highly doubt the devil is going to come through my leftover science project, Hannah. 'Hannah, join in or get out.'" "Shannon, be real. Not only is this stupid, it's not even a real board, but it's also foolish. You never know who you may summon." "I highly doubt the devil is going to come through my leftover science project, Hannah. 'Join in or get out.'" 'Join in or get out.'" The queen bee had spoken, and dutifully like drones in the hive, the girls each took a side of the board and sat crisscross applesauce on the floor. Shannon lit an orange passion fruit candle on her bedside table and a sea breeze one on the dresser. Then she killed the lights. The glow of the 2 candles and the plug-in nightlight lit the room as the confusing scent of fruit and sea salt filled the space. What do we do now? Everyone put a finger on the glass, 1 from each hand, only lightly. Danielle had no real idea what she was doing, but she had seen the scene on TV and was sure it couldn't be too hard. All right, close your eyes and repeat after me. Spirits near, spirits far, speak to us, wherever you are. It wasn't Shakespeare, but it did the job. The girls sat in silence, sweaty fingers resting on the glass. Hi, Danielle began as the girls chuckled. Is there anyone who'd like to speak with us? Stillness. We're here to listen if anyone has something to say. Nothing. Anyone? Danielle pleaded. Ever so slightly, the glass began to tremble, almost imperceptibly. Then it slid to the letter H. The girls began the obligatory accusations of, "You moved the glass." "No, you did." Until finally they all agreed it had to be a spirit. As if on cue, the glass moved slowly from the H to the E, then the L twice, then O. A lot of effort for a salutation, but the girls were stunned. Hello? Who are we speaking with? Danielle queried. The glass began to move again, this time with more purpose and resolve. Quickly it spelled out, "Who are you?" "Shannon," Alice responded. "Shannon, this is Shannon. She's the birthday girl." What a great friend, Danielle thought, literally throwing her buddy under the supernatural bus. "Hello, Shannon," the board spelled out. "Is there anything you want?" Danielle asked. The board then replied, SHANNON. Not funny, Alice. Fear had crept into Shannon's typically cool voice. "That really wasn't me," Alice said sternly. Once again, the glass slid across the page. "It was me." "Who are you?" Danielle asked. "Spirit far," the glass spelled out. "Danielle, who the hell is this?" Shannon demanded. "Spirits near, spirits far." That's what the girls had chanted. That's what they had invoked. It could be anyone, literally. "Let's just shut this down," Danielle prompted. "Repeat after me. Spirits near, spirits far. This session is closed. Return to your place on this star." The girls looked at Danielle with sheer panic and consternation. "You're making this up, aren't you?" Shannon spat out in a thick tone of disgust. "You have no idea what you're doing." "Shannon, don't move your hands. Keep them on the glass and repeat the closing incantation." "Incantation? You idiot, you don't even know who this creep is at all." "Shannon, it's super important you do not break the connection until after you've said the closing." Before Danielle could finish, Shannon swiped at the glass, 6 fingers still looming over the space it had once occupied as it skittered across the floor. As the glass came to a smashing halt, the candle flames jumped 2 foot up in the air, 2 towers of flames emitting from the scented jars. The nightlight blew with a firecracker pop, and the makeshift board flew up above the girls' heads. The boombox began to play a mix of the CD inside, interspersed with howls, the sounds of gnashing teeth, children screaming, and pockets of gray noise. Pictures came crashing down off the walls, and the linens were pulled off the bed by unseen hands. The room was alive with chaos as Shannon's belongings tore around the space as if caught in a ferocious tornado. The girls began to scream, and the commotion summoned Shannon's parents, who found the 4 huddled in the corner of a perfectly normal teenage bedroom. After a long lecture about keeping down the noise and to stop telling lies, the girls were left, confused and shaken. They sat in silence, tears streaming soundlessly down their cheeks. The makeshift yellow Ouija board floated down from the ceiling, where it had obviously been stuck during Shannon's mom's sermon. It landed between the girls upside down, a message scrawled in Sharpie on the back. As the girls rose to read the note, the boombox came to life. The eerily angelic tones of Timbaland's "Kill Yourself" filled the room as Danielle read aloud, "Are we having fun yet?" Do you ever lie awake in bed at night and wonder, what is happening in the West London Witch Patreon? Are you plagued by the feeling that you're missing out? Do you want more content and a sneaky look into the inner workings of the West London Witch? Well, I just wanted to pop in and say that joining Patreon is super easy and affordable. I am very aware that we are deep in a cost of living crisis. So for as little as $1, €1, £1 a month, you can unlock the entire West London Witch Patreon and gain access to loads of additional content that you will never experience here on the main show. Patreon is a place where I share extra special interviews, behind-the-scenes stories and gossip, and answer your questions. And in return, you're also helping support the show as we work to share with you the best storytelling at the highest studio quality. So come join us at patreon.com/The West London Witch. Hello and welcome to episode 77 of The West London Witch, a podcast where we share stories about those moments where we find ourselves very much not alone. Growing up, my mom always told us to never touch a Ouija board. She cautioned that spirit boards were not games, but rather delicate doorways to the unknown. And you never know who may be waiting to enter. And even worse, much like a persistent house guest, you may have trouble getting them to leave. Over the past 4 seasons of The West London Witch, we have talked a lot about the origins, history, and evolution of the talking board. Yet, it is still a highly controversial topic. Through my research, I have deduced that people fall into one of 4 categories when it comes to their opinions of the Ouija board. Camp A thinks it's all just a bunch of silly hocus pocus. It's just a piece of printed cardboard anyways. And besides, ghosts aren't real. Camp B are certain on their beliefs in ghosts, but are skeptical about the dangers or the efficacy of a Ouija board. Camp C are people like Mama Strazina, who believe that the risks outweigh any potential rewards and you should just leave them alone. And finally, Camp D find them an effective and simple tool for spirit communication. No different than using flashlights, knocking, or seances to commune with the other side. However, even people who fall into the last category might agree with my mom when she states that you may not get to choose or control who comes into your session and how, or if you can even guarantee that they will leave you behind. Today, Amanda D. Paulson from the viral Instagram and TikTok account Pretty Effing Spooky shares with us an extremely personal and haunting tale of the potential hazards of the Ouija board. So light your candles, my friends, and clear your minds as we travel into the dark and misty beyond. I'm Rebecca Strazina, and this is the West London Witch. Episode 77, The Doorway to Darkness.
I have a story for you today about a ghost that followed me for over a decade. This ghost I ended up knowing very well, but it didn't start out very friendly. I was very, very afraid to begin with. It all starts with the time that I first tried using a Ouija board. And a lot of people will raise their eyebrows. A lot of people have a lot of opinions and feelings about Ouija boards, and that's okay. I have never personally been against them, but I've always been fascinated by them, but I've never been scared of them. I don't necessarily think that Ouija boards can inherently bring through terrible, evil, demonic spirits whatsoever. However, the first time that I used a Ouija board did bring through something that ended up wanting to sort of attach itself to me and follow me around for many years to come.
Our story begins in 2008 in the Big Sky country of Montana. Amanda had just graduated high school and had been newly inducted into a local ghost hunting group. Amanda had been fascinated with the paranormal from childhood. From the tender age of 8 years old, she had been experiencing unexplainable and confusing phenomenon. And since then, she had been on a quest to discover more about what, who, and how she had had these experiences. This group was the perfect place for her to dig deeper into these questions and search for some concrete answers.
So I joined this ghost hunting team, and I joined very timidly at first. I did not really participate too much. I kind of wanted to sit back and observe until I felt comfortable. I felt like a very sensitive person. Like I experienced a lot of paranormal activity daily. So I was taking it very cautiously. However, after joining this ghost hunting team, I did get a little emboldened by it and decided that now would be a really great time for me to start experimenting with Ouija boards. And my entire life, I was raised not to touch Ouija boards at all. Actually, my entire life, I was told not to mess with the paranormal whatsoever. I was raised very religious, and my grandma was Baptist, and she raised me the same. And if anyone knows anything about the Baptist faith, there's really not a lot of room in that religious framework for the paranormal, let alone something like a Ouija board. It was just very not okay in my family's eyes. But because I had joined my ghost hunting team and I was kind of exploring this side of myself, I felt emboldened. And I decided to find a Ouija board for myself and set up a Ouija board session with one of my close friends. And we wanted to do it exactly correct. We wanted to do it the exact way that it said on the internet to do it. Is that the way it should be done? I don't know. But we searched it online and we went with the first very detailed explanation of how to do a Ouija board session. And we took it very, very seriously. We turned off all of the lights in the apartment, but then we took it a step further. We even unplugged every single appliance in the apartment. We wanted no electricity whatsoever because that's what the internet said. In hindsight, I don't think it really would have mattered.
The girls surrounded themselves with tea lights and sat with the board between their laps, ready to begin their very first Ouija board session.
We did approach the Ouija board session very openly, which in hindsight, people say now you shouldn't use really any spirit communication tool to just reach out to anything, anywhere out there. But we did ask for anyone who wanted to speak with us to come through. And we started getting some answers on the Ouija board. And the answers at first came slowly. If anyone's done a Ouija board successfully, you'll know that it starts very slowly. You'll kind of be unsure about if it's answering you or not. But over the course of the session, it starts to pick up and it starts answering more quickly. It also starts doing some strange things where the planchette would feel like it was running in circles beneath our hands. It would go back and forth on the board many times.
Together the girls sat, fingers daintily placed on the cool planchette, candles crackling around the room as their hands zipped across the alphabet-strewn board. It was exciting, fascinating, and exhilarating. The mystery of the movement intoxicating. However, the session took a turn once a very distinct spirit began to interact with the board.
But the really interesting part about this Ouija board session was when we eventually contacted this man who seemed to take a liking to me immediately. And I will say, I'm certainly not in the business of trying to connect with a spirit in this way. I was not looking for it. I was not excited about it. I did not feel, quote, special for having this spirit take a liking to me. It was actually very scary. And at one point, he even said through the board that he was standing behind me and he didn't want to move. He wanted to be as close as possible to me.
The girls questioned the spirit. Who was he? Why was he interested in Amanda? What did he want from her? His response was beyond shocking.
And he did express that he wanted to marry me, which was unexpected and honestly bizarre. And in hindsight, I don't know if it really came through in the way maybe he intended. I don't think he really wanted to marry me, but I think maybe I looked like somebody he knew. I don't know. There was something there. Further from that, we started experiencing things outside of the Ouija board session as well. So my friend's dog started looking in the corner, started kind of acting bizarrely and running around the house and then stopping to look at something invisible. That was sort of bizarre. And then we also had an instance where a fly started buzzing around our heads right where we were doing the Ouija board. And we jokingly said, if you are really here with us, this fly is really annoying to us. Can you please take care of it for us? And at that exact moment, the fly flew into one of our tea light candles and lit itself on fire.
Of course, the girls were alarmed by the experience and the surrounding phenomenon, but they were at a bit of a loss with what to do with this encounter. Where do you go from here?
We eventually ended up ending the Ouija board session, and we did do it correctly according, again, to the internet. We closed the session properly, blew out our candles, did everything we could to sort of close ourselves off to whoever we were communicating with. However, it did not actually close me off to whoever the spirit was. The spirit definitely stayed with me, again, for many, many years to come. Moving on from this Ouija board session, I continue to be on my ghost hunting team. I continue to go about my life. And a little bit later, I even moved out of state. I moved from Montana to Washington State. In this time, I started to experience sleep paralysis. I had never had sleep paralysis before. And at the time, I did not know what it was. I didn't have a name for it. I hadn't done any research, but it started as a traditional shadow figure standing over my bed and feeling paralyzed and just all the very classic signs of sleep paralysis. And at the time that it started, I did not feel or think that it was this man from the Ouija board at all. I thought it was just kind of a one-off, like a separate instance, especially since I was ghost hunting at the time.
However, after Amanda's move to Washington State, she realized that not only had her sleep paralysis intensified, but it had also morphed and evolved into a new and terrifying dimension.
This was when it started to materialize into an actual person, into like features, and not just a shadow figure that would show up in my sleep paralysis, but what would appear to me as like a ghost. I remember some of the first instances where this man appeared and I knew immediately it was the same man from the Ouija board. One of them being a time that I stayed with my friend in her college dorm room. There were these bunk beds and I was sleeping on the top bunk bed as I was just staying overnight with her. And I woke up in the middle of the night, opened my eyes and saw a man standing in the corner of the room. And I don't know what it was about it, but I knew immediately that he was familiar, that it was this man from the Ouija board. He was just staring at me, but watching very carefully. And immediately after that, I ended up getting the worst food poisoning of my life. I ended up having E. coli.
Amanda does not believe the spirit caused or was connected to the illness, but rather that he materialized at a time when she was vulnerable, unwell, and defenseless.
From there, these stories started developing, and he started developing, again, more and more features in his face. I started to be able to like really see what he looked like. However, most of the time when I was seeing him, I still was somewhat paralyzed, or at least paralyzed from fear. I don't know if I was paralyzed from sleep paralysis, but I could not move at all. I could just see him and watch him and see what he does and know what he looks like. Until this one instance where I'm in my first apartment in the city that I live in now, Spokane, Washington. I fell asleep on the couch one day after work, and I fell asleep on my stomach. And if anyone knows anything about sleep paralysis, it typically happens when you're on your back. But this time I fell asleep on my stomach, and I immediately fell into the sleep paralysis kind of dream state that happens. And for me, it might be different for everyone, but I think it's pretty common. For me, when I fall into sleep paralysis, I start to hear and feel like a static buzzing that then kind of darkens the room after that. And I feel like I enter into like a flip-flopped version of reality almost. It's like I'm falling asleep, I'm trying to fall asleep, but I only fall asleep so much, which is like the basis of sleep paralysis. But I started to feel myself fall into that kind of staticky, weird feeling, and the lights started to dim. It was then that I realized that my hand was hanging off of the couch. And when I looked down at my hand, I saw this man kneeling by the couch and holding my hand. And at this point, I could see every single detail about him. I could see that he had a white button-up shirt on. He had old jeans on. It was tucked in. The top button or so was unbuttoned. He was very disheveled, very dirty, like he worked outside or something. And his hand felt very distinctly like a working man's hand. It was very calloused with cracks in his skin. I could feel the size of his fingers, and I could feel him holding my hand tightly and just watching me.
It goes without saying that Amanda was horror-struck. This type of interaction was not welcomed or appreciated. At this time, Amanda had stepped away from ghost hunting, and she was not interested in exploring the paranormal. She was not seeking this type of interaction from the beyond, and it petrified her to the core.
And so I pull my hand away and I try to get up from the couch, and I drag myself up like it feels like I have weights on me. It was nearly impossible to get up. And I get up from the couch and I start crawling to the light switch by the door that's in the kitchen. It's a very small apartment. I start crawling to the light switch to try to turn the light on, thinking that turning the light on will end whatever it is that's going on. And after a very difficult and what felt like forever time getting to the light switch, I finally get there, I turn it on, and when I turn on the light switch, I wake up.
Although Amanda recognized that this could have been just a terrible dream, the experiences did not end there. They only continued to grow in frequency and potency.
I was extremely terrified, but I still didn't take any take any action on trying to do anything with him, or I remove him or cleanse him or anything like that. I just kind of was like, this is a thing that I'm dealing with. It's something I'm afflicted by. And I just have to sort of get through it. And that was not the only few times that he would appear and would visit me. It would happen many, many times. Like I said, over a decade, this man would come and visit me so often. And later on, my sleep paralysis would even start to evolve and change to the point that many people were visiting me in these sleep paralysis episodes. And I always kind of felt like he sort of brought them forward, or if you want to believe that, you know, the veil was lowered or a door was open, I don't know. But after that, my sleep paralysis episodes just evolved, and I would see a woman. I would wake up and I'd see a woman walking down my hall, and she would turn to me and look. She'd have a big dress on. Like, I could see every single detail. Sometimes I'd wake up and there'd be 3 people, presumably a family, standing at the foot of my bed, just staring at me. I've also seen, you know, hands and all sorts of things, like people trying to reach at me, people trying to talk to me.
These visitations persisted throughout Amanda's 20s. She never tried to stop them, yet she didn't encourage them either. However, in her late 20s, she once again began to research the paranormal in a new effort to gain some further understanding. Yet still the activity continued, and no answers were coming to the surface. Yet one major life change had a profound effect on Amanda and the ghostly visitors.
But I ended up getting with my current boyfriend now in my late 20s. And the second that I started staying with him and then living with him, the sleep paralysis stopped.
This is not the first time that we've heard about ghostly hanger-ons departing after their object of desire finds love, happiness, and stability. In episode 64, Macabre Mysteries, our storyteller, Malia, recounted a very similar situation that also came to a conclusion after she met her husband. I find it interesting and compelling that a positive change in life circumstances can have such a profound effect on the afterlife as well.
I still don't have any explanation as to why it started. I know why it started. It was probably the Ouija board, but I don't know why it ended exactly. I think maybe there's something to feeling safe and comfortable with another person. Like maybe that was blocking off this kind of door opening experience that was happening. Or maybe the original ghost from the Ouija board moved on and found somebody else. But in hindsight, I feel a little bad. I feel like I should have tried to speak with him more, like maybe there was a different message there. But my gut told me that he just thought I looked like somebody he used to know and really took a liking to me. And that is something that I didn't necessarily want to explore more. But the rest of the sleep paralysis episodes definitely piqued my interest and started many years of sleep paralysis research that I've done. And I've even since found a way to self-induce sleep paralysis and find a way to put myself into that state so that I can then kind of listen in and communicate with any spirits around me that choose to come forward. And that has been relatively successful, except for the fact that I often get scared and then wake myself up out of it. So if only I can get past that part of my sleep paralysis research, then maybe I could find out more for myself and for others.
Although Amanda now embraces Ouija boards and simply classifies them as a tool in a ghost hunter's arsenal, she does see this story as a cautionary tale. Amanda does not want to feed fear about the talking board, but does want to remind participants of their strengths and weaknesses.
It does allow you the tool to communicate with anyone on the other side, and it's important to make boundaries and maintain those boundaries and understand what you're getting yourself into when you reach out to the other side and pull through anyone, because ghosts are people and not every person has the best intent.
Amanda is mindful about sharing this story because she has not seen the man for years and is keen to keep her paranormal boundaries clear and firm.
I don't talk about this very often. I have before, but I feel like every time I bring it up, things start to get a little weird again. And it does make me a little bit hesitant to talk about him, as if I can kind of call on him. And I don't necessarily want to do that.
So what do you think? Do you agree with Amanda that Ouija boards are just another tool for communication, another device or mechanism for connection? Or are you of my mom's opinion that you should never open doors you may not be able to close? Head on over to Patreon, where we dive into this debate and I share my own personal beliefs on the oh-so-contentious spirit board. Do you have a spooky story you'd like to share? I'd love to hear it. Drop me an email at thewestlondonwitch@gmail.com or find us on Instagram and Facebook at The West London Witch. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. And come and follow us for additional content on Instagram and Facebook. Until next time, merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again. The West London Witch is created by me, Rebecca Strazina. Our sound designer and production magician is the incredible Danny Cross. Our theme music was bespokely written and performed by the wickedly talented Kyle Hall. Our cover art is the beautiful collaboration between Lizzie Wilson and Jake Bowser. Special thanks to Miss Sinead Bowers, our quality control and biggest cheerleader. And thank you to you, all of our listeners all over the world. These are your stories. Thank you for sharing them with us.